Stories are the most powerful thing on earth. They are literally life and death. Wars are waged based on the story of who is the hero and who is the villain. You are the result of a story your parents told each other, the one-night stand, the soulmate, and friends who became so much more. Life and death. So wouldn't you like to understand them better, these stories? How Story Works, an elegant guide to the craft of storytelling by Lani Diane Rich, demystifies stories and helps you understand why you love what you love, why you hate what you hate, and why prologues are almost always a bad idea. How Story Works by Lani Diane Rich. Available on Amazon in ebook, audiobook, and paperback form. Get your copy today.
Welcome to Still Pretty, a Buffy the Vampire Slayer podcast from Chipperish Media. I'm story expert and nerf Lani Diane Rich.
And I'm film scholar Noelle LaCroix. And can I just say, men. Anyway, we're here today to talk about The Wish, the 9th episode of Season 3.
The Wish aired on December 8th, 1998, and was written by Marty Noxon, with Doug Petrie as story editor and Jane Espenson as executive story editor, and it was directed by David Greenwald.
Marty Noxon, Jane Espenson.
Marty Noxon. I know. That's like my dream team. Doug Petrie,
right?
Too. I love them.
Yep. And the reason that we get so excited is that we are a fully spoiled podcast. So we're going to talk about everything, writers, directors, but mostly characters, character arcs, all of the twisty, turny things that happen in the world of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So if you have not seen the entire show, get on that, because it's definitely worth it. And we will be here because, we don't have anything else to do.
We got nothing else going on.
We got nothing else going on in our lives. We will be here for you. That's one of the many services that we offer here at Chipperish Media. We don't play well with others. Now we're going to ask you this once, and then we're going to go on patrol. In The Wish, Buffy, Willow, and Xander engage in some daytime demon slaying. Buffy's worried about Faith withdrawing from the group, and Xander recaps the whole Willow-Xander cheating scandal while applying some self-serving retcon to the whole situation.
But you know what really bugs me? Okay, we kissed. It was a mistake. But I know that was positively the last time we were ever gonna kiss.
Darn tootin'.
And they burst in, rescuing us, without even knocking? This is really all their fault.
Your logic does not resemble our Earth logic.
At school, Cordelia meets up with her old friends and is introduced to Anya, the new girl whose family just moved to town. Harmony seems to be ready to take Cordelia back into the mean girl fold, but then humiliates Cordy by suggesting that she should hook up with Jonathan. Later, after taking another shot from a popular boy who doesn't want to be seen with her, she bumps into Anya, who takes her side.
I'm not even thinking about him. I am past it. I am living my life.
Still, don't you kind of wish?
I don't wish. I act. Starting now, Xander Harris is going to get a belly full of just how over him I am.
At the Bronze, Willow, Buffy, and Xander commiserate while Cordelia puts up a big show of laughing and having fun with her new friends. When Buffy sees Cordelia stepping out alone into the alley, she checks on her. But as they're talking, a vampire attacks, and Cordelia gets knocked into the trash. Buffy slays, but Cordelia's not interested. The next day at school, she vents about Buffy to Anya and makes a wish that changes everything.
I never would have looked twice at Xander if Buffy hadn't made him marginally cooler by hanging with him.
Really?
Yeah, I swear. I wish Buffy Summers had never come to Sunnydale.
Done.
The world goes white, and when Cordelia can see again, Anya is gone, and everything is different. Cordelia has her friends back, all the guys are interested in her, and she's on top again. But it turns out things aren't that great. Everybody's wearing dark clothes, and they have to rush home before sunset, and Xander and Willow are dead. Cordelia heads home, but the sun has gone down, and the streets of Sunnydale are full of vampires, like Xander and Willow.
No way! I wish us into Bizarro Land and you guys are still together? I cannot win!
As Cordelia is set upon by Xander and Willow, Giles, Oz, Larry, and some girl named Nancy pull up in Oz's van and take her away. Xander and Willow go to the Bronze and report that Cordelia mentioned Buffy to the Master, and he sends them back to kill her. They can't afford any trouble with the big plant opening. At the school, Cordelia tries to explain things to Giles, but before she can finish, Xander and Willow show up, lock Giles in a cage, and feed on Cordelia, killing her. Oz and Larry come back and report that Nancy's dead, which, of course, she is, because she's the girl. Duh. Anyway, as they're carting Cordelia's body to the incinerator, Giles notices her necklace and takes it off her and then calls Cleveland to ask for Buffy. At the Bronze, Xander and Willow report to the Master, who is so pleased he lets Willow play with the puppy, which turns out to be Angel in a cage.
You remember I told you about the plan? All those people you tried to save? It's gonna be quick for them. Not for you, though. It's gonna be slow for you. That's right, puppy. Willow's gonna make a big bark.
At the library, Giles finds the necklace in his book. It's the symbol of Anyanka, a vengeance demon. He rushes home to get more volumes, because he's Giles, and sees a group of people being herded into a truck by some vampires. He rushes out, holds up a cross, and the vampires back off. The people run away, but another vampire knocks Giles down, and just as they descend upon him, a girl in baggy cargo pants and a bad attitude tears the vamps apart.
Buffy Summers?
That's right. Want to tell me what I'm doing here?
Giles brings Buffy up to date on the goings-on in Sunnydale and tells her about destroying Anyanka's power center to change everything back. Buffy's not interested. She just wants to kill whatever she needs to kill. Buffy heads out to the Bronze to find the Master and take him out, but the place is empty. In the basement, she comes across Angel in his cage. He offers to bring her to the Master at his factory. She walks into the cage to unchain him, but he flinches when her cross gets close to him.
Oh, you gotta be kidding me.
Wait! I won't hurt you.
No, you leave that to your master.
You don't believe I want to help you. Believe I want him dead.
At the factory, the Master is unveiling his new machine that drains victims of blood, pouring it into glasses for the vampires. Oz, Larry, and a bunch of other humans are behind bars waiting to be slaughtered. As the Master grabs a human and demonstrates the machine, Buffy and Angel show up. Buffy shoots a crossbow at the Master and lets the people loose. A fight breaks out. At his apartment, Giles summons Anyanka, and she tries to kill him, telling him that this is the world now, and isn't it wonderful? At the factory, we watch as the fight ensues and Angel dies. Oz and Larry dust Willow with a shard of wood. Buffy stakes Xander and then has her neck snapped by the Master. And then Giles smashes Anya's necklace.
You trusting fool! How do you know the other world is any better than this?
Because it has to be.
Flashback to the moment when Cordelia made her wish, and she wishes all sorts of terrible things on Xander, Buffy, and Willow. And Anya is powerless to grant those wishes.
All right, so Noelle, The Wish, one of my favorite episodes. I love me a Bizarro-World, and this is classic Bizarro-World. Everything is different. Everybody is in a new context, except Oz, who I think pretty much stays the same guy, right? Aside from him, everybody's different. Everything is different. I love it.
It's so wonderful, and just, I mean, so many good moments. So many good moments. But I love that we get to focus on Cordelia, at least for the first half of the episode. It's really, really cool to get. Have we had a Cordelia-centric episode?
No, not
till
yet.
This point? I don't think so. I don't think so. I love it so much. I mean, and it's not without problems, but
sure.
Yeah, and we'll get there when we get there. But
it's really fun. I love the opening with Cordelia without makeup. I mean, Charisma Carpenter is unnaturally beautiful no matter what. But usually she's always very carefully made up. And to see her in this like really human and vulnerable state, it's really engaging. When she's there and she's burning those pictures, you can feel so much for her. She's so incredibly vulnerable. I love it.
I love that moment so much of her sitting on her bed, cutting up pictures and burning them in a bowl. It's this wonderful kind of everyday magic, which, you know, really is something that I think a lot of us do, you know, whether we call it magic or not. It's something that we do when we have big feelings. Like that feels really appropriate somehow, that you might, like, you know, burn all the letters or cards that someone sent you, or, you know, like,
honey, my house was an incinerator for like a year.
But you know, that is something that works in the world in this mundane sense. But also, I love the way that we make it look sort of magical and feel sort of magical with Xander's messages playing, you know, one after the other in the background as she's doing this. And then at school, Willow mentions Amy, who we know from Witch, right? And, you know, mentions seeing Cordelia at the mall looking scary. And I kind of love this, like, witchcraft fake out. I like the idea that we're gonna maybe go into the space of, like, Cordelia tries to work a spell.
Right.
But of course, that's not what happens. She looks scary in a different way.
Right. She looks scary because she is gonna cut a bitch. Like when she gets out of that car and she's wearing that red leather outfit and her makeup has changed. I mean, she looks 30. She looks like a lawyer about ready to kill somebody. And she's going into the school and she looks so much older. It's really, really crazy. But also like that red leather outfit feels like, and the makeup, everything feels like armor, her hair, everything. Like, you know, she has been wearing sweaters and like little, you know, Catholic girls like skirts and she's, I mean, she's dressed for evening, you know, she comes into school and it is just such a drastic change in her. And I kind of love the way that they styled her because that is armor she's wearing.
Yeah. I mean, it's sex armor. I mean, she's ready to ride. Like this is, which is, I mean, I love like the grossness of that line, but also it's just so great. And then Cordelia or Harmony says, well, I have just the stallion for you. And I'm like, ew, 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 ew. But also like, it's so perfect. It's so perfect. But I love Cordelia. I love the way Cordelia kind of embraces her sexiness and her sex appeal as part of her power.
Right.
Like she's going to go to school dressed in red leather and heels and, you know, smoky eye for daytime and you're going to deal with it. Like, look out. Like,
exactly.
It's so good. It's so good.
It really is. And I love like how Harmony. Okay. Now Harmony, I love.
Oh my God.
Harmony is one of my favorite characters in the entire run of this show. She's so fun. She doesn't get good yet. She's just your classic mean girl bitch at this point. You know, she really doesn't get to be fun until after she becomes a vampire. And then she's really fun. But she's so fucking horrid to Cordelia after everything Cordelia has been through. And also like poor Jonathan to be the one that they joke about, you know, Cordelia dating. That's so incredibly cruel. And the way they all giggle and laugh. And I gotta say, at the end of this episode, when we have one of the Cordettes, you know, being sacrificed, should have been Harmony, because at least there would have been like a little bit. I mean, maybe it's not Harmony because we wouldn't have felt so bad for her. But damn.
Maybe.
Damn.
Yeah.
That bitch needed some comeuppance. Something needed to happen to her. She needed to get like killed by a vampire or something in this episode because she just was so awful.
She's so awful in the real world, but then when we get to Bizarro-World, I sort of feel for Harmony a little bit. Like we see how rattled she is by the world. She's so like, she's a little bit more tender. She's got that kind of, you know, why would you say that about, you know, the bronze?
Right.
Why would you? And she really is I don't know. You just see what living in that world has done to the Cordettes.
Yeah.
Even. And I mean, and talk about, clothing shifting,
right.
Like the Cordettes looking like they're going to a funeral. It's so wonderful.
I know.
It's so good.
It is. I mean, it's really crazy. And then, poor Cordelia in the middle of this, they're like, why are you wearing these come bite me colors? And
yes.
Like, what? Like colors get their and we've never had that as part of the vampire lore before, that like they're attracted to people wearing bright colors,
Yeah.
So that was kind of interesting. And then of course we've got the teacher as the bell's ringing, rushing to get out, and like tomorrow's our monthly memorial, so no
class.
School.
God, our monthly memorial rolls trippingly off the tongue.
Well, which honestly, they could probably use in the regular world, because lot of those students, kick it every month. So.
That's true, and we
the
don't
death toll
really
at Sunnydale.
notice.
Yeah,
we don't
it's
really
kinda
notice
casual.
or acknowledge that kids die, because of course then that would become what the show was about, and that's not what the show is about.
Right. Well, and we had that with Larry at the beginning of this season when we had the rope sequence, and he was like, if we can get our shit together, and if not so many like unexplained deaths, then the football team is going to rule. He's got the whole thing. It's very fun.
I love it. But we've got so Cordelia. I mean, poor Cordelia, trying so hard. Like she is mourning Xander in her own photograph burning way. After last week when she finally put his pictures in her locker. It's so sad.
And now she's got to cut them all up and everything.
Yeah, she's got to cut them all up, which she does. I love that she cuts up the pictures before burning them. Like we're really, really, really hammering on this,
and cuts each individual person.
Yeah.
She cuts Willow, she cuts Buffy, she cuts
separation. Separation. So Cordelia, she's ready to have her old life back.
Mm-hmm.
And then she can't get back in with the Cordettes. I mean, Harmony just being awful to everyone is so hard to watch. And it's really, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. I feel for Cordelia more in this episode, I think, than I usually do.
Well, usually we don't have Cordelia in such a state of vulnerability. She's usually, I mean, even when she's occasionally the damsel of the week, where she was with Out of Mind, Out of Sight, how it was with Some Assembly Required, where they were going to cut her up into little pieces and make a super dead girl out of her. But when she's the damsel, it's just like she's in danger, but her like emotional, vulnerability hasn't really been on the table much. But here, her discovering Xander cheating with Willow, then, falling and being impaled by rebar, for Christ's sake. That was awful.
We didn't talk about that moment, but, talk about vulnerability when she goes, I fell. I just my heart just breaks.
I know.
My heart just breaks for her. And of course, in Lover's Walk, where we have some, double meaning in our title, I fell. Right. And then she tells Xander, I can't see you. I can't see you because we think, she's dying.
Right, she's dying.
Blacking
right.
out.
So we
but
are
also,
our lovely little fake out from last week. Yeah.
Oh, man. So, like, serious vulnerability, I think, at least for me, is carrying over some, too.
Yes. No, absolutely.
From last week. But what I love about that is that after last week's, Cordelia death fake out, Cordelia actually dies in this episode.
Which is really shocking to see that, because she's kind of our POV character up until that point. And then we sort of switch over to Giles, who becomes our POV character and the hero of the piece. But to have this, I mean, poor Cordelia, like we just said, we haven't really had a Cordelia-centric episode. She gets finally a Cordelia-centric episode, and they kill her in the middle of it. You know?
Yeah. But it's kind of a wonderful, Hitchcockian twist.
Yeah, it's a good turn.
Yeah, the example that everyone points to is Psycho, because of course that was so shocking.
Right.
When Hitchcock killed his protagonist, a third of the way through.
Right.
Third of the way through the film, this character that we've been following. We're also fully spoiled for everything else on Still Pretty. We're just going to spoil everything.
We're going to spoil 60-year-old films as well. So,
Rosebud is a sled. It's
Bruce Willis was dead the whole time. Right. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Jigsaw is the dead guy on the floor. I actually haven't seen the Saw movies, so anyway.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, but we get this shift of POV. Cordelia actually dies. Our character that's moving us through this bizarro world, and it's great. We get a Cordelia sandwich on vampire bread, which kind of hot.
Right.
I mean, I'm not gonna knock it the way that Xander puts his hand on Vamp Willow's head as they're both feeding on Cordelia. It gives me some feelings.
It's giving you some feelings.
It gives me some feelings. I enjoy it.
It is. I gotta say, like, Vamp, Xander, and Willow are pretty hot in this episode. But before we get to them, before we get to the joy and strangeness that is, Willow and Xander as vampires, I want to talk about Anya showing up. Because, of course, as we are fully spoiled, we know that Anya is going to be a big deal through the rest of the run of the series. Love Anya. She is actually going to come in and replace Cordelia as not just Xander's girlfriend, but our resident truth teller, the speaker of the flat, truth, which is always a fun character. I really, really love that.
No fucks to give.
No fucks
Anya.
to give.
I love Anya. And
she's great.
I think at this point we have no idea.
She's not developed. She's no way. Like, looking, and also like who she is as a vengeance demon. The whole, like, the face going all veiny and everything. We will revisit that a couple of times and bring that in as, like, part of the demon thing, but we don't really see it that much. It's not a big deal. Plus the fact that she loses her demonness in this episode, so she becomes a regular, kid, which is hilarious because we're going to get one of my favorite lines very soon, which is like, I'm 1,120 years old. Give me a freaking beer.
Yep. Poor Anya, just trying to get a drink. Oh my God.
She's so great. So we don't get a real strong sense of Anya as a personality, as a character in this episode, but just seeing Emma Caulfield, is so wonderful. We don't utilize her comic timing at all. She doesn't tell one joke. She's not funny at all in this episode, but it's just such a delight to see her. And this whole thing about, the vengeance demon, and when she's pushing Cordelia, don't you just wish?
Don't you wish? Yeah. Yeah.
I love that. I love all of that. I think it's so, so great. The one thing, though, that I think is really weird is she takes off her necklace, which is her power source, and puts it on Cordelia.
Yeah.
Like, why
would that be a thing?
Because if the thing getting destroyed, because she's, by the end of this episode, when she's fighting with Giles, she's very invested in not losing this alternate world.
Right.
Right. Which is a little weird, because the thing is that she's not just getting vengeance on Xander or even Xander and Willow. Like, the entire world is getting, like, completely screwed by this wish. And she's actually, condemning, because Xander and Willow are already dead. They're vampires, but, she gets Cordelia killed.
Yeah. And she's, like, fine with that. Like, and she's a demon. I mean, that's the whole,
she's a demon. She's a demon. But her whole thing is she's a vengeance demon that she, defends women and, and all of their. So it's a little weird. I think that it's not completely thought out. And when we return to Anya later, we kind of retcon how all that works. Like, she doesn't, typically she gets vengeance on people, on men, you know, because that's her particular brand of vengeance. But she doesn't, you know, create alternate universes or anything, you know, at that point. But it's kind of interesting because, you know, Giles is doing his research, right? Destroying the power center reverts all of the wishes that Anya has ever granted, right, throughout time. So if you subscribe to like the butterfly effect theory, right? A butterfly flaps its wings and then there's a tsunami. Then all the things that Anya has ever done to wreak vengeance on terrible men has just gotten reversed. So, like, it doesn't seem like we would just go back to the regular world. It seems like the whole, like, everything would be different. I mean, and that's, you know, a huge amount of philosophy. And obviously we just need this particular, you know, wish to have been reverted.
Right.
But it's a little weird. Like the world building of the vengeance demon and of Anya and all of that kind of stuff, I think is thinly done and completely retconned later in the series. But it's you know, if you look at it too much, you know, if you turn your head and squint, you can you just like whistle past it.
Right.
But it doesn't really make any sense.
Right. And in this episode, Anya seems like Anya's going to be just another demon who we, you know, like we deal with demon antics for this episode and then we're done with those antics. But I mean, you mentioned Emma Caulfield and how wonderful she is. I absolutely love her acting through all that demon makeup.
Yeah.
When she's confronting Giles at the end, she's teeny. She is a teeny, tiny little human.
Tiny little thing.
She is an action figure and she is scary. She is
really
scary at the end. And, you know, do you have any idea what I do to a man who uses that spell to say, oh, man. Giles is in for it.
When he summons her, I mean, it is pretty cool. And I love the whole thing. And Emma Caulfield, the thing with Emma Caulfield is that what happens throughout the rest of the run of the series is that she has this unbelievably sharp comic timing. She is on the beat. I mean, she like, it's perfect. And so because she's so funny and she's capable of being so funny, we basically make her the joke teller. She is the source of all the funny little jokes. You know, we just kind of make her the comedy mule, you know, for the rest of the series. Gradually she becomes that. The rest of season 3, she's not quite so hyped. In season 4, she sort of takes in that, you know, the comedy mule role and then just carries it all the way through until season 7 season 6, I guess, is when Xander leaves her at the altar is when things get a little more serious and we really see and get more from her. But for the most part, she's a comedy mule, you know, through the rest of the series. And it's such a disappointment because when she's given anything, like I have not seen her, anything that they've given her to do, from this episode where she's this, you know, really scary demon to Hell's Bells in season 6 when she and Xander break up. She becomes a vengeance demon again, and then we see, you know, so much more from her. But like, there's nothing they've given her that she hasn't like nailed completely.
Yeah. Her comedic timing is fantastic. Her face acting is fantastic. We get that. We get that here. I get a sense that Anya is just, you know, it just occurred to her to say this in the moment.
Right.
You know, really, really great delivery on those lines. And I love her. I love her kind of steering Cordelia, kind of coaching her, like Xander Harris, what a loser kind of.
I know.
You know? Which of course is hilarious when you have the context of the whole series. It's wonderful. Yeah. I mean, it's wonderful that she came into this space to, you know, specifically to make his life miserable. I love the idea too of the vengeance demon. Because Cordelia is not really out for vengeance, but I love the idea of the vengeance demon trying to, like, inspire. Don't you wish? Like, you just all you have to do is ask. You just have to ask, and then I get to grant your wish. No, it's so fantastic. I love it. And there's a scene in season 6 where she's desperately trying to get,
get people to wish, like get women to wish for vengeance. And it's just because she can't hurt Xander directly. I think it's entropy when that happens. It's so wonderful. Like, I love all of that. And she's so, so great in all of that. And it brings up something that's going to be kind of a question, that we're going to revisit a few times throughout the rest of the series is, vengeance versus justice versus forgiveness. And, what is, because you look at somebody who does something terrible and vengeance seems like an appropriate response, but there is a moral splashback effect to vengeance, but then there's justice. And like, what is the difference between justice and vengeance? Is justice just something that is served dispassionately? Justice is something that is, metered out by some kind of authority figure, who says, well, this is the appropriate response to this behavior or whatever. Like, it's interesting, and then there's, of course, forgiveness, which is the most, like, the least satisfying of all, So I, as a victim, have to forgive this motherfucker and he gets off free. Like, what the hell is that about? Yeah.
Yep. But what's interesting about the idea of justice, and I think that The Wish kind of hints at this a little bit, is this idea that when we're wishing for something, or when we are fantasizing about having a different reality or different experience, we can't see the entire picture.
Right.
The reason that everything goes so horribly is it's that, butterfly flaps its wings in the rainforest kind of thing where, okay, so Buffy never came to Sunnydale, and that has a huge effect on all of these things that Cordelia never would have thought of, because why would it would never occur to her to even consider that Buffy's presence would have this effect on all of these areas of her life. So when we're talking about vengeance versus justice, I think what makes justice tricky, in fiction and in life, is that there are circumstances, there are, connections to consider that we might not necessarily consider, especially if we are the one who feels wronged.
Right.
So it's a really, really sticky situation to be in. And that's why, one would hope that the justice system would be, I don't know, fair and balanced and unbiased and all of the, and the
claim everybody says is that the justice system, it's not a fairness system, it's a justice system. And I'm like, I'm not sure. Like, it's really difficult. And these are not easy questions to answer, of course, which is why we end up spending so much time thinking about them, because vengeance feels about right. Like, somebody does something truly awful. Vengeance feels like justice, and it feels about right. But the thing that's interesting is that we have demons who are serving vengeance. And I love this idea of the vengeance demon. I love this idea of a demon that exists not for, just because it exists, not for pure evil, but for a concept. It serves an idea, and we have a little bit of this with Ethan Rayne, although he's not a demon, but he serves chaos. Right? Yeah. He just wants to throw shit in the air and see what happens, right? So I find I love this idea, because we have so many demons that end up becoming almost like, it's like a nature thing. Like, they're different kinds of demons, but they're all basically like, I just want to kill things, and there's nothing really that interesting about like what they do philosophically. But to have an entire group of demons, first of all, that, as we're going to find out from Anya, that are humans, like that are brought into this fold, that are humans who are made demon with these powers so that they can serve vengeance. So they're not demons by biology, they're demons by philosophy. And I find that this idea of vengeance turns humans into demons. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like super, super queer, like in a queer theory space that it's.
Oh my God, I love it. Make that
like,
connection for me.
Well, no, just that it's about community. It's about that community of demons serving this cause. I don't know. Like there's something like really, really twisty about that. And I mean like queer in the queer theory sense, not queer in the, queer people are demons, although some of us are. I just love, the philosophical weirdness of that is just, it's just so, I don't know. It's super, super rad. And I dig it.
I think it's really interesting. Okay, so as we talk about vengeance, let's take out a moment to hear from our sponsor. This episode of Still Pretty is brought to you by Vengeance.com. Vengeance.com, where the distinction between justice and revenge doesn't really matter because we don't really care. Vengeance.com, where the terrible people who do terrible things are turned into cockroaches, or at the very least, denied seats on the Supreme Court. Vengeance.com, where maybe there's a little karmic splashback for having the sociopath in your life conveniently hit by an ice cream truck, but it's so worth it. Go to Vengeance.com and use the code Trust Us. It'll be fun to get your discount today. Or instead of spending your money on having the board members of every pharmaceutical company covered in chronic recurring boils, which require prohibitively expensive treatment, and oh, by the way, are designated as a pre-existing condition, you can just give that money directly to Chipperish Media so that we can keep making the great podcasts you love, like Still Dead about Angel the series, Listen Up A-Holes about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Orgasm about explosive inspiration, How Story Works about, well, How Story Works, Metaphors Be With You about Star Wars, and our newest podcast, Welcome to the End Times, about the Good Omens book and TV series. Visit patreon.com/Chipperish to find out more. So one of the things that I kind of wanted to talk about as we get into the wish is the effect of isolation on, we see that we open with Buffy, right? Worried about Faith because Faith is isolated, and when Xander asked Buffy how she dealt with losing Angel, she says, I had you guys, right? So we're seeing like this importance of community and how that affects people. Cordelia right now is completely isolated. She had the Scoobies, right? She left the Cordettes. She had the Scoobies. She's trying to go back to the Cordettes. She can't. They're mocking her, and then Wishverse Buffy doesn't have her friends. She goes to Cleveland, where apparently there are no Willow and Xander analogs. And whoever her watcher is not that great. And she becomes this dark slayer. I mean, she's not Faith. She's kind of Faith a little bit. Yeah. And so we end up with this like Alterna Buffy version, and we've hit a number of times in the story that Buffy is only Buffy because of her friends, and the support, to the point where we had that horrible line from Spike in School Hard, a slayer with family and friends. That sure as hell wasn't in the brochure, right? It's a terrible fucking line, but
it's clunky, but it tells us what we need to know.
But it does. It delivers the goods, right? So we see, like what happens to people when they're isolated and how isolating being the Slayer is, to the point where Spike is surprised. Spike has had interactions with a number of Slayers, as we're going to see as we go through the series. And he's surprised that Buffy has a community around her, so what makes Buffy special as a person is that she's the Slayer, but what makes her special as a Slayer is that she has community. And that's the thing that saves her from becoming this very dark version of Buffy.
Yeah. And I mean, we start even before we hear about, how Buffy got through losing Angel. We have Buffy being choked by this demon thing and of course it's the connection with her friends that saves her there. So first thing, it's friendship, it's communication, it's preparation. They've got their bag of stuff. What kills a demon? And like they have each other's backs, and they have each other's backs so often. So to see to see what happens to somebody who doesn't have any kind of support. And I mean, even even Kendra and Faith in their own way both remark on Buffy's connection to other people. Kendra's shocked by it and then of course comes around on it, just in time to die. Sure. Because of course, and Faith, Faith tells Willow and Xander that, she would have had a better time in high school if she'd had friends like them. And you just see how much isolation is part of being a Slayer. So, I don't know. I love Bizarro-World Wishverse Buffy so much.
I love her
She's
too.
So great.
She's so fun. I love how she has no fucks to give. I love the scar on her face.
Yes.
I love the long hair pulled back in a ponytail. I love the cargo pants.
Oh my God. She's got a little bit of like a Laura Croft vibe with the, she's a little bit like badass babe has no time for any of your bullshit. When she says she's gonna put a stake through the demon's heart and Giles says she's not a vampire.
Yes.
Buffy says you'd be surprised how often that works on things.
How many things that'll kill.
Yeah, she's all business. There's no feeling with what she's doing. There's no, it's a little bit of the killing machine out to kill the bad guys, but without the emotion there.
Right. I mean, she's, separated from herself, from her own sense of, of community. I mean, when Giles calls her Watcher, the Watcher has no fucking clue where she is, but apparently got her the message and she got on a plane pretty fast.
Yeah. So Cordelia is alone, which inspires this wish, which then ends up making her even more alone. And we get to see what happens to the world with no Buffy in it, or with the world of Sunnydale with no Buffy
no Buffy. Yeah.
And one of the things that happens is that Willow and Xander don't make it.
I know. Oh my God. It is so, when Cordelia bumps into Xander and she goes, Harmony told me you were dead. And then Xander has this like, wonder why she would say that. And it's like the way that he plays Xander as a vampire is so funny and weird and off-putting. And I mean, Nicholas Brendan is really good.
He's really good.
Like, he pulls off that like evil vampire Xander thing. But I have to say, as far as stealing the fucking show, it's Willow. And this is our first bored now.
Yep. Bored now.
Oh my God. I love Vampire Willow. Vampire Willow is so delightful. And I love when we see her again in Doppelgangland, I'm just going to squee the whole time.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. She's so much fun.
Oh my God. Vampire Willow. I mean, I go pre-verbal. I love her so much. I love her so much.
Yeah.
The world that is implied just in the choices that Allison Hannigan makes as Vampire Willow.
I know.
What is this kind of sing-songy detached voice that she's doing? I love it so much. I love it.
I know. And the
so
thing
much.
is, like, Willow is, Willow has been this kind of like mousy type, you know? And when when she's making out with Xander, like, her tongue is all over the place with that. Like, she's, and when she's straddling Angel, the puppy, like,
dear God.
everything is so, like, she's so so fun. And it's so funny the way that, Allison Hannigan playing this role against everything that she's ever done. But it also brings you back to this, essential question, which we've come to before and we're going to come back to again. Like, how much of the original person is in the vampire?
Yeah.
Because both Xander and Willow here they're not just like evil versions of Xander and Willow. Like Xander and Willow, the originals, don't feel like they're in there. Like Vampire Xander isn't really funny.
No.
Like, he's not funny the way that that regular Xander is. And I mean, so is that because he has no more insecurities and so no more need to use humor as a defense mechanism? Like, is that where that is? Or is it just that part of that personality didn't make it through the vampire switch? And Willow, this idea that, like, I mean, because the difference is you've got the demon, but you've also lost your soul.
Right.
So what does that do? It doesn't create just a cold killing machine version of those characters. These are entirely different people. It's an interesting question. Like, their personalities just aren't, Willow's mousiness and her, like all the things that make Willow are not part of Vampire Willow, and the things that make Xander are not part of Vampire Xander. So, like, how much of the original personality is lost in the vampire?
It's interesting to me how much of Xander's personality really seems to come from a place of insecurity, so that when he's a vampire and he's not trying to impress anybody and he doesn't really care, and he's got his eyeliner going.
Right.
He doesn't care. He doesn't need to use a bunch of words or crack a bunch of jokes because whatever. Whereas Willow is no longer guarded. I mean, she's very physical, whereas our regular Willow is very, very cerebral. She's very brainy.
Right.
Vampire Willow is extremely physical, and we definitely get more physicality from her than I think we get from Willow in pretty much the entire show up to this point. By which I mean, she is all over the place, straddling Angel and feeding on this girl that the master doesn't want to eat because she keeps looking at him. How much do I love that moment? But then, and then she's kissing Xander with her tongue all over everywhere, and she's licking her fingers after she eats this human. And it's like, where was all of that physicality in our original Willow? And I think,
so what does that say about, like, the role of the soul? It's more than just a moral compass.
Yeah, it's because you can.
There's no, like, it's a lack of anxiety. It's a lack of insecurity. It's like, it's all of these things. And, like, how much is the loss of the soul? And then, but there's also this, like, you are a demon.
Yeah.
Like, how much of it is the demon? But if you look at, like, Spike and Drew,
also very
they're
physical.
Evil.
Yeah.
Right. But they
Also very
seem
few
to
fucks
maintain some of who they originally were.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that the Xander really doesn't seem like Xander. And I wonder if maybe that's just because what makes Xander is the insecurity and the, male entitlement, which he doesn't super have as a vampire.
Well, he's still got entitlement. He's a vampire. Yeah. It's vampiric entitlement, but it's another flavor of entitlement, but it's still that,
But it's just, he's not going to leave somebody 75 messages on their answering machine.
No, very true.
Which
very
is
true.
a thing that people used to have. There used to be answering machines.
I know.
No.
Old technology.
But
people used to have these things in their homes called phones that actually were physically attached by a cord. So weird.
Yeah, but in terms of, like, how much of the vampire is the person and how much of the vampire is the demon and how, what carries over, it really, really seems like the show just kind of does whatever it wants based on whatever it wants to do
based on the moment.
Yeah.
Right. But looking at all of our available evidence, right, it seems like some people retain more of who they are than others. And then, we're going to, of course, revisit this in Doppelgangland,
yes.
which we'll discuss at the time. But Willow's, I think I'm kind of gay. And then Buffy saying, well, the vampire has nothing to do with the human. And then he's just
and
like,
then
oh, well,
Angel,
actually.
he's about to vamp-splain vampires. And Buffy gives him a look. I love that scene so much. We'll get there
all
when
right,
we get there.
We'll talk about that when we get there. We're getting way ahead. And Doppelgangland is going to give us, of course, another opportunity to have this discussion. But I find it really interesting because the thing is that the subtraction of the soul is part of what becoming a vampire does. And there's an effect of that. But without the soul, without our crippling anxieties, is that is that what makes us evil? If you just have, I don't know.
Okay,
it's very interesting.
I have a theory.
Yes.
That it's a dancing demon.
Is it a dancing demon?
That it is because the judge, when he looks at Spike and Drew, says is it humanity? Is that the word that he uses? So I think it's humanity that sets vampires and humans apart, which, problematic language
there. So it's not just the soul.
It's not the soul.
Is
because you can have a soul and still
do
evil.
Is the soul the seat of humanity? Right. I mean, because that's the thing.
And you can have no soul and still have humanity, apparently. So
we're just going to be having this we're going to be running around this fucking mulberry bush for the entire 7 seasons because we go here again, we get all of this evidence, we get more data, and every time we get more data, it's just like I don't know.
Well, and then
none
we get to the end and we're just
what
like,
are we saying?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's weird and it's varied and it's odd, just like all of our anxieties. So skipping into the Wishverse a little bit more, we've got the new Scoobies, right? We've got Larry and Oz and Nancy, who I love. Every time I talk about this episode, this girl has one fucking line, where she looks at Cordelia. She's talking, and that's it. And it's just, but she's got this presence. I feel this character, and that actress never really did that much more. I love that actress. And then, of course, she's one line, is immediately killed. And I'm like, Nancy was cool. Bring her back. I want her in Sunnydale.
Yeah.
I want her as part of the Scoobies. There was something about her that was kind of a nice energy to it. I don't know. I love, of course, Larry.
I love
Larry being part of the White Hats. I
love that Larry. I love this group. First of all, I love the idea that even in this twisted Sunnydale, we still have, Giles, the wannabe demon slayer. We still have
he's a rogue demon hunter. Right?
He's a rogue demon hunter with his van full of teenagers. There's
with his van full of it's really disturbing how much Giles hangs out with teenagers, because the thing is that he doesn't have to be a librarian as a cover for being a watcher for the Slayer.
Yeah.
Then he's hanging out at high school with a bunch of high school friends.
Yeah.
It doesn't quite, if you look at that too closely, that can be disturbing, but it's okay. We know Giles. He's cool. He's okay.
It seems to be okay. It still seems to be okay.
He needs young people who can run fast. Basically a bunch of middle-aged people are not going to be able to fight vampires. So fine, fair enough. But it's really fun to see Giles kind of leading this group.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I love Scruffy Sweater Giles.
Giles.
Giles has not shaved in a little while, and let me just tell you, I had to take a moment with that.
You had a moment. That's good.
I had a moment for
I like that we
myself
each had at least one moment in this episode. It's very
yes, exactly.
That is always
it's
soothing
about right.
to me.
You're Willow, I'm Giles. It's fine.
It's
fine. About standard.
It's fine.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, but our Alterna Scoobies, and I love the way they pull up in Oz's van, and Giles has a cross and Oz has the crossbow, and Oz and Larry have a little bit of a rapport between them, and I'm just...
Do they have a rapport?
They're just...
Are you seeing some chemistry there?
They are... when they're talking to Giles and they're doing just their routine stake whittling and crossbow maintenance, and there's a real, there's just a real intimacy there, and I like it.
I like that idea.
And I have headcanoned
it.
That idea that they're a couple.
Because in no other way has Oz changed. From who everybody else is completely different. Oz is the same guy, He's
I adore Oz. Can we just talk about how wonderful Oz is? We need our moment.
Let's take a moment.
Oz appreciation.
Pre-wish and post-wish Oz. First of all, same guy. Love it. Very cool. Very calm. It would have been interesting if they'd had him do something different, but I don't even care because I love him.
But what would he even have done? Like, it's so great that he's the same.
I know.
I love
He's the same guy because Oz is the balanced human being of the entire run of the goddamn series.
Mm-hmm.
But he's so that scene with Willow in the beginning, he's angry with her, he's hurt, but he's so kind and compassionate to her. I absolutely love this speech that he gives her. I've got a clip of it. I'm going to run it now.
I'm sorry this is hard for you, but I told you what I need. So I can't help feeling like the reason you want to talk is so you can feel better about yourself. That's not my problem.
So I love when he says, that's not my problem. He's being so he's establishing and defending his boundaries while at the same time having compassion for her, but not going out of his way to make her feel better. I need to learn how to handle my interpersonal relationships from Oz. Because I usually just bend over backwards until I absolutely break. And then I come out fist flying and people are like, what the hell?
Yeah.
You put up with all my shit before and now you're not putting up with it anymore. I got to find that nice balance between here are my boundaries, do not cross them, and then, kindly and compassionately separate yourself. It's so wonderful the way that he does that. And I love him.
I love the way he says, she's starting to talk to him and he says, you've said all this already. He's acknowledging what she's doing in this really kind way.
Yeah.
And he says, I told you what I need. It's so good. It's so wonderful. And something I love about that scene is that I feel for both of them.
Yes.
I love a scene where characters are on opposite sides of an issue and I feel for both of them. That is that is the power of really, really good writing and characterization.
That complexity and nuance. So it's good. Wonderful.
So good. Yeah. Oz, we all need to channel a little bit more Oz in our lives, I think.
My God. I know. Oz is the guy. Oz is who I want to be when I grow up. He's so good. He's so centered. He's so the problem with Oz is he's a little bit too perfect, even in his imperfections, even in his weird moments. He's so freaking perfect the whole time until we hit season 4 and he loses his goddamn mind. But whatever, we'll get there when we get there. But it's just it's so great. And Oz is such a there's something whenever Oz is on screen, I feel comforted.
Yes.
I feel like there is somebody in the room who is going to be, wonderful and kind no matter what. He is absolutely fantastic. And I think that he can be that great because he does have such firm boundaries because he, and that's the thing, fences make good neighbors, boundaries make good relationships. If you can, and my problem is I don't really put down any boundaries until somebody has gone way too far taking advantage and then I snap, so I got to find a way around that. But anyway, I'm sorry. Is this not my therapy podcast personally? This is all right. So let's talk a little bit more about Oz. I love him when he is when they're he's looking at Cordelia who died, and he's like, so Cordelia wished for something. Well, it was a long happy life. She'd get her money back, and it's exactly Oz. In the wish verse, Oz is regular universe Oz. It's just Oz.
Oz. I love
He's
Oz.
so great.
I love Oz. And of course, Oz, we've talked about this a little bit before, but one of the reasons that Oz is able to be so wonderful as a character is that 3 days out of the month, he is a true monster.
Yeah.
Totally out of control. Because that's part of what is so comforting about Oz's presence is that he is so thoughtful and in control.
Yeah.
He's very much, he's got great self-knowledge. He's very kind and compassionate to the people around him. Except that he's also a werewolf. And I love this contrast, like the way it's almost like the toll that Oz pays for being,
for all of that awesome.
Yeah, all that awesome is he becomes a literal monster,
right?
With no,
God, he's so great.
no memory, like no connection to his werewolf self, which is something that, you know, we'll learn a little bit more about as we go along. But Oz is a fascinating character. If Oz had his own show, I would be so here for it. I
just want Oz talking to me. Like, what I want is for the writers of Buffy to write Oz and have Seth Green do it, but it's just like a podcast where Oz just tells you stuff. Like Oz just talks, you know?
Oh my God.
I just want wisdom from Oz in
the
my ear holes every day.
The wisdom of Oz. There's your title right there.
Oh my God, it'd be so great. Okay, got to make that happen. Marty Noxon, I'm talking to you. Go write that for me. Because the world needs it.
Oh my
Absolutely
God.
freaking needs it.
Oh my
all right, so one thing we haven't really talked about that much is Angel is the puppy.
Oh, baby.
So this is really interesting to me. I love this part of the world building that Angel, of course, never met Buffy, never had sex with Buffy, didn't become Angelus, came to Sunnydale, was waiting for Buffy. The Master took over, and this is what happened. And now we're in this dystopia where he's kept in a cage and Willow torments him all the time. The vampire with a soul, right? You know, I love all of that. And I think it's so fantastic. And then we have Buffy coming in. He's like, Buffy, you know, because he had seen her before. Like, he knew who she was. I came here. I waited for you. You never showed up, you know. And then there's that moment. First of all, she sees him, this tormented guy, in a cage, right? And is just gonna leave him. She doesn't know he's a vampire yet. Is just gonna leave him there, which, by the way, is a cold, bad turn for Buffy. I mean, but I kind of like it, but it's cold, you know?
Not her problem.
Right, exactly. Not my circus, not my monkeys. And she ends up talking to him, and he calls her in. She starts to, you know, to free him from his chains. He flinches at her cross, and she's like, "Oh my God, you got to be kidding!" Starts to leave
and just walks away. Like, doesn't even.
I love
she's
that.
Not even gonna bother. She's like, "Oh, you've got to be kidding me!" And she just goes to leave. It's wonderful.
It's so fantastic. I love that whole interaction between them. And then when we get to the fight, right? You know, this fight scene at the factory, you know, as they're opening up their humans on tap, you know, thing. And it's so interesting. Like, I mean, first of all, we got, you know, the Master. It's wonderful to have Mark Metcalf back. You know, it's always fun to see him.
I forgot he was part of the Wish. I squealed when his name popped up in the opening credits. I love the Master so much. Sorry, continue.
It's so great. No, it's absolutely fantastic. So, you know, we have him back. We have this whole scene with all the vampires. And as I'm watching them, you know, he's like mass produced and, you know, right from the source for freshness and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, yeah, you know, but don't vampires like to hunt? Isn't that part of like the fun of being a vampire, is the actual killing of the people, you know? So there was that. I was like, okay, you know, fine, whatever. As a business decision, it doesn't seem like that's the thing that vampires are really going to enjoy. But then we have this fight scene, right? You know, Angel brings Buffy into the factory. They release all the humans. Everybody fights, and we see them all kill each other with absolutely no knowledge of what they mean to each other. Buffy dusts vampire, or Buffy dusts Xander, right? Oz and Larry just push Willow. Yeah. Vampire Willow into the shard of wood hanging off the gate there. And then the Master just snaps Buffy's neck.
Yeah.
You know?
And before that, Angel gets hit with a crossbow, and he says Buffy.
Yeah.
As he
Buffy,
dissolves
as
into
he dies.
Dust. It is. Okay. All right. I am not a puddle of goo weeping mess with respect to this show yet.
This is after becoming. You didn't cry and weep for days after becoming.
Nope. Oh my God! Because I'm a cold-hearted snake. But this sequence, this fight sequence, gives me all of the feelings. I get a little bit I get the goosebumps, the full body goosebumps. I get a little bit teary eyed because it's, first of all, it's just so beautiful. It's in slow motion. We've got this, we've got our dramatic music, which is cheating for giving us the feels. But it's so meaningless. All of these character deaths. I mean, yes, they're not the same characters that we know, but they are.
But they were, and they know nothing about each other. They mean nothing to each other.
And it is
and that's so heartbreaking.
It's so heartbreaking to watch them, these people who we've seen in relationship in all of these ways for, however many episodes now, and they just, I mean, when Angel and Xander and Willow just dissolve into dust and there's nothing left of them. Beautifully foreshadowed at the beginning, of course, when Buffy says that, I guess these guys don't go poof, but that's something good about vampires is that once they're gone, they're gone. And they're just gone. And it's so, and it's so sad. It's so sad. And we couldn't smash Anya's pendant before the Master snapped Buffy's neck and she just falls out of frame in slow motion. No, we had to see her.
We had to
see her die.
Of course we had to have
reality.
that.
And I just, I can't.
I know.
This is where my feelings just come flooding in. Is this sequence of all of them not knowing who they are and who they were supposed to be, and
knowing each other and who they are to each other, and I have to revisit Scruffy Sweater Giles a little bit.
Were you not
because
done?
It's my goddamn show.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm not done. I'm not done. I love him so much. When he summons Anya, right? He's there figuring it all out. He summons Anya. Anya is scary demon face, right? He's got her power center. Again, why did she give it to Cordelia?
But whatever.
I don't know. Whatever. And he smashes it.
Yeah.
And it's so, how do you know the world is going to be any better than this? It has to be, and it's
Giles,
so wonderful.
Keeping the faith. I love Giles.
I love Scruffy Sweater Rogue Giles. He makes me so happy.
He's so great. And he's so cute about flexing his watcher muscles. And
he is.
He's like, yeah, okay, I got this. Seeing Giles come back to himself a little bit too. Because he was a watcher. We find out when he's talking to Cordelia, she says, you were her watcher. And he's like, how'd you know I was I never told, and so it's clearly something that he's, it's a bit of a pain point for Giles that he's not a watcher, but he still has all of this knowledge and all of these books. And he's so delighted with himself when he finds the symbol of Anyanka in the book. He's just like, I love watching Giles come back to his watcher powers.
It's really nice. But you can see that this has taken a toll on him. And we have this, the effect of isolation on Buffy, what that's done to her. But not having Buffy has clearly done something to Giles. I mean, the master will rise. That was the end. So what happened, what we averted, the apocalypse we averted at the end of season 1 clearly was not. And the master has been running the show ever since. And that'll take a toll on a guy, I'm sure. But God, take a toll on Giles anytime because he looked good.
Yes.
I may just watch this again later. So Noelle, what are you wearing?
Oh, what are we wearing? What are we wearing in this bizarro world? How shall we?
I know.
However, shall we, the costume department, show that this is a Bizarro world. If not, with Bizarro costumes. I love all of the costumes. I love the production design, the whole thing. But, you know, Cordelia is our central character for this episode. So she gets to wear the baby blue, which is kind of Buffy's color usually. I mean, blue, blue in American film and television is usually a good guy color. Not always, but often is a good guy color.
Yeah. And
here we get to put it on Cordelia in her come bite me outfit, which I just love. But I love the shift in everyone's wardrobe once it becomes the wish verse. I mean, I talked a little bit about the Cordettes already and just how they look so good. They look so good as a group, and Harmony has her hair in that tight bun, and everything is very, you know, it's very dark because, of course, we have this idea that vampires are attracted to bright colors. Okay. But more importantly, like, they look very conservative, and they look like they've seen some shit, because they have.
Some shit.
They have.
Well, certainly everybody has.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And I really, really enjoy it. I love the way Cordelia stands out in her bright blue. I love that she clearly is not of this Bizarro world.
Okay, can you talk about Giles' sweater?
Can I talk about Giles' sweater? Yeah, just so Giles is wearing a sweater.
Right.
I like that in the world where Giles is not a watcher, there's no tweed. There's no tweed. There's no tweed.
Where are you going to go shopping for tweed in the middle of the apocalypse?
But it suggests a more casual Giles, because he does take his role as watcher very seriously, and he dresses for the job he wants. Okay, like he dresses for the. Dress for the apocalypse you want. And
dress for the apocalypse you want.
I don't know. And his his little forest green sweater, and he looks, he looks scruffy.
I like scruff. I gotta say, I like the scruff on a guy. I really do.
Now, see, if I want to scratch up my inner thighs, I'm going to do it on Spike's cheekbones, not stubble.
Well, if it's grown out enough.
Gibberish behind the scenes, everyone.
This is becoming an entirely different podcast, but you know what? I kind of like it. This is sort of like wish verse still pretty.
Oh my God. Why did we not do
we're
that?
Getting a little alternative. I don't know, because I didn't think about it. I didn't think about it beforehand, but
Next Bizarro World episode, we're doing something bizarre. And
we'll do something. We'll do something bizarre.
But I would be a very, very bad costume appreciator.
Yes.
If I did not talk about Vampire Willow's.
Oh,
what?
My God.
What is this thing that she is wearing?
I love it. And we're going to see it again, of course. Doppelgangland.
We're going to see it again.
It is, oh my God. It is so wonderfully done. Because the thing is that Allison Hannigan is a very beautiful woman.
Yes.
But she's dressed down. She's dressed like a kid, which is appropriate for what she's doing. But here, like, that's a different side of Willow.
That's a different look. And we go, like, we'll just do the whole package. We'll just do head to toe. So the Willow hair, classic Willow hair is, of course, flat ironed for days. Vampire Willow hair is a little bit, she's got a little sex hair. She's got a little sex hair. It's that,
she does.
It's the flat ironed hair that has been roughed up, perhaps with some puppy play. And then she's got, they have just made her look absolutely gorgeous makeup wise. I mean, very, very sultry. It's this beautiful goth look that I'm like,
she's a vampire sex kitten.
And there's something magical about that corset top with the red with
the little frill at the top. I mean, that little bit of frill though is so Willow.
Yes.
Like, we lose all of Willow, like, through this, like, we lose pretty much everything that makes Willow Willow, except that little girly touch of frill.
Yeah, little ruffle.
You know?
Especially because
ruffle.
she's wearing pants. She's not wearing
Yes.
a Drusilla kind of gown. She's,
Exactly.
she's a vampire who likes to hunt. So she's got her pants and she's got her chunky boots on. But then this corset top with the bell sleeves and the little bit of the ruffle, I'm like, yep, there's Willow.
Yeah.
There she is.
Yeah.
And
that's,
oh God. And of course, Vamp Xander is like vampire James Dean. Like he's, white t-shirt under, black. He's just... we're just making Xander like it's the best Xander's ever looked, at least for my money.
Yeah,
and I'm
it's some good Xander.
Kind of sad to see him go, but oh man, oh man, vampire. I love vamp versions of characters. I think we see
that is so fun.
Yeah, we don't get to see everybody on the show in Vamp Face at some point, but
no, and we only got to see Buffy and Vamp Face once in Nightmares, and it seems like that's an opportunity we've really missed exploring. But yeah, it is very fun to see the vampire versions of them, and Xander's whole voice, like when he vamps out, his whole voice is so different and evil, and it's really weird. But I love it. I love being able to see these like bizarro versions of people, these different takes on people, like whenever we go back into the flashbacks. And of course, I'm usually not a big fan of flashbacks for lots of reasons. I'm not going to go into it now. But when we see like Spike before he was turned, Drusilla's tragic before she was turned, Liam, who's Angel, before he was turned, like all of that stuff it's so interesting to see like these human versions of these characters and what's happened to them over all of these, centuries that they've been rampaging through the world. Really, really interesting.
Yeah.
Really fun. All right. So what you got for the patriarchy?
I mean, I haven't flexed my Miss Xandry muscles in a while, but Xander is the fucking worst at the beginning of this episode. I mean,
yeah.
And it's, it's played for comedy and whatever.
Really, it's all their fault. Well, at least, I mean, that's the thing. Like, really, it's all their fault. At least we're calling it out. But he is leaving all of these messages for Cordelia, who clearly doesn't want to talk to him. And I mean, granted, Willow's kind of doing the same thing to Oz. She's stalking him at his locker, and then she comes to him, and he's like, "You already told me all of this." And then Xander, when they're at the Bronze, and he's like making everybody, making Buffy and Willow laugh with him and all this kind of stuff, and trying to like show up Cordelia. And like Willow has a point. Willow's like, we're the ones who did this thing. We should shut up and take it.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I'm living in the now.
God. And he's so pouty when she doesn't want to touch his hand.
Yeah.
He's so pouty. She is, she sets this boundary with him, and she's clearly like not excited about it, but she understands that part of what she needs to do to repair things with Oz is to not have any sort of a physical relationship with Xander, whether they're friends or not. And he is so sulky about it. And I just want to be like, get over yourself. But the leaving 70 gazillion messages for someone who does not want to talk to you is not okay. It's not okay. Yeah. It is the kind of behavior that we see escalate into, violence. Like, and it is a form of violence. Like, calling someone who has asked you not to call them, that's violence. Yeah. Like, it really
What
is.
did she say last week? Xander, stay away from me.
Yeah.
Right? If she wants to talk to him, she'll get in touch with him.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. And of course, and we have like John Lee coming in just being gross to be gross,
God,
maybe if you want to go someplace private. He's there.
So disgusting.
He's there to humiliate Cordelia, and he does a great job of it, and it is so disgusting. And of course, Cordelia's racist interaction with the maintenance guy because racism and classism love to party with the patriarchy. It's all one big oppressive system. So, Cordy, I love you. You're
terrible.
not off the hook for that. That's bullshit.
No,
but
no. And I mean, I think like, you know, on the one hand, I believe that she is clearly being presented as an asshole for doing that.
Oh, totally.
But not quite like it's one of those things where like, is she?
Yeah.
You know, like I think so. I see her as being an asshole, but is she clearly like being, you know, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's not good.
Yep.
It's not good.
Yep. So that's what I got. And I do love Anya calling out the patriarchy a little bit. Do you know what I do to a man who uses that spell to summon me? How dare you? Stay in your lane, Giles. You know, it's
exactly.
Like,
stay in your
lane. Love it. I love
it. No, it's fantastic. All right, so what you got for the girl power moment of the week?
I really love Buffy refusing to make it us against Cordelia. You mentioned the scene at the Bronze where Xander's trying to, you know, make it into these two camps, and Buffy's like not having it. She's like, no, you know, Cordelia has been through some shit. I mean, Cordelia was the one who got impaled. Like, that's
right.
That alone would be some serious, you know, trauma. But then to try to make it about, you know, team us versus team Cordelia, Buffy's not having it.
Yeah.
And I love that. And then Buffy goes to try to talk to Cordelia and says, like, look, you know, I've been through
and
something.
And to say you don't have to lose your friends. Yeah. Like, I can still be your friend. And I think that was such an incredibly sweet thing for her to do.
Yeah, it raises an interesting question for me, though, about the whole focus of the episode. That, you know, Anya, of course, is pressing Cordelia to wish for something to happen to Xander because, you know, Xander has wronged Cordelia. And Cordelia makes it about Buffy. And I'm really interested in, like, what we're doing there with respect to, like, girl on girl hatred and, like, the way that...
And also that she's mad at Buffy. Buffy was not kissing Xander.
I know. It's not even Willow. It's not even
Willow.
It is a really, really interesting position. And of course it gets us into this bizarro world, which is what we want, but I think that it's not a deliberate statement so much as this is the avenue through which we are going to get to the Wishverse, right?
You know? But it is kind of interesting how Cordelia's ire ends up being directed toward Buffy and blaming Buffy for everything that has happened to her because, you know, once Buffy got here, she made Xander cool. Right. You know? So yeah, it is a bit of that internalized misogyny where women, instead of holding the man responsible for doing what he's done and usually get mad at the other woman, but apparently she's getting mad at like a third party woman. But yeah, like the holding other women responsible instead of the men. Although she is also angry with Xander. So, I mean, it's all there. This just happens to be the wish that she ends up getting. You know, it's the first one she says. It's the one that gets enacted. But it is kind of, it's a little bit uncomfortable in that moment because of that girl on girl misogyny that we see so much. But it gets us there. Yeah. It gets us to the wish first, which is really fun.
And I like that Cordelia's wish comes on the heels of Buffy trying to, reach out to Cordelia. I mean, I guess you could make an argument for that kind of like misplaced ire, especially because this is like the last straw of the vampire, you know, pushing Cordelia into the trash, and she's just had it.
Oh God!
At this point,
yeah.
But it's an interesting. It's that friction between Buffy and Cordelia that we sometimes get and sometimes don't, and it seems to kind of ebb and flow based on what we need the episode to do.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So what's your favorite part?
Oh my God. I have so many favorite parts. It's not fair. It's not fair. I think the real answer to that is that slow-mo fight scene where everyone just
It's real
everyone
good.
just dies and they have no idea who they are to
so
each other.
powerful. I know.
Yeah, it makes me feel things. It points up that isolation and what it shame on the show. It made me feel things. Now I have to go.
God damn it.
I have to go retreat to my cave of cynicism. Makes me feel things about connections to friends and lovers and the world and everything. Yes. All right. Okay. What's your favorite part?
I gotta say, it's Wish vs. Buffy. I love the kick-ass, no fucks given version of Buffy that we have here. She's really fun. She's really edgy. I love the way she's styled. I love everything about her. It's just really fun.
She's wonderful. That's it for today. To join in the discussion on Twitter, follow Lani at Lani Diane Rich and me at Noelle Aloud and use the hashtag StillPretty.
Or you can keep Chipperish Media going to the tune of $1 a month or more and gain access to the live chat in Discord, where you can hang out with me and Noelle and all the Chipperish patrons who wished us into Bizarro Land, and Willow and Xander are still together.
You can also show your support by giving Still Pretty a great review on Apple Podcasts, or by telling your friends about the show, or by making a monkey's paw wish that turns the world into a dark dystopia run by demons. Wait. Hold on a minute. Did one of you make a monkey's paw wish that turned the world into a dark dystopia run by demons? Because that actually would explain a lot.
It really would. We will be back next time with Amends, the 10th episode of Season 3. Until then, bored now.